Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, welcome to Playing with Power MTG, where we play with the most powerful cards in the most powerful formats. Tonight's game is brought to you by TCGplayer.com, where you can find all of your cards online while still supporting local game stores. Dragon Shield for all of the best accessories to protect your decks, and through Patreon, where you get awesome benefits for your direct support. One of the barriers to entry for CEDH is the constantly increasing cost. Even the least expensive of the optimized CEDH decks are north of $2,000. Because of this, many people in the CEDH community have been helping to alleviate this problem by providing resources and budget-friendly decks to new players. There is even a dedicated website for this called budgetbrews.club. This is a great resource as it offers information on budget cards and decks that can be played in CEDH. They try to shoot for the budgetary restriction of $500. That's a great savings compared to the optimized lists, but $500 is still a lot of money. That's why the Playing with Power team has decided to brew some CEDH commanders on a budget of $100. This price point is only 5% of some of the cheapest decks in the format. We are not including basic lands or the commander in this $100 budget. Also, prices fluctuate all the time, so while these decks are $100 at the time of recording, they may be more or less in the future. If your playgroup is looking to get into CEDH, we highly recommend you take a look at the deck lists in the description below. Now, let's start out by showcasing our budget decks this evening. First, we have Zach piloting Yuriko, the Tiger's Shadow. This deck currently costs around $5,800 to build completely budgetless. This cost comes from Time Twister, expensive fast mana, premier interaction, and an expensive land base. His cuts have saved over $5,700. Zach's Brew is a mid-range deck that leverages Yuriko's ability to draw cards and pressure opponents' life totals. This deck is chock full of interaction to stop all of his opponents in their tracks. Next, we have Ryan piloting Naru-Meha, Master Wizard. This deck is currently over $6,200 to build completely budgetless. The expensive cards include Time Twister, the Tabernacle at Pendrell Vale, the best counter magic, and the pricey fast mana. Ryan has cut over $6,000, and his brew is still a force to be reckoned with. This is a mid-range deck that looks to stop opponents early, then seeks to loop Ghostly Flicker with your commander to go infinite and win the game. After that, we have an old member of the crew, Garrett, piloting Tasigur, the Golden Fang. Garrett came back to help us with the latest budget brew video. This deck currently rings in at over $5,400. The cards that contribute to Tasigur's price are the 3-color land base, best counter magic, expensive fast mana, and reserve list cards. Garrett's brews save well over $5,000. Tasigur is a control deck that looks to stop opponents early, abuse Tasigur's ability to recur interaction, and then end the game with a combo finish. Finally, we have Adam piloting Niv-Mizzet Perun. This deck currently comes in at over $3,200. The things that contribute to Niv's price are the premier counter magic, expensive fast mana, and land base. Adam's list saved well over $3,000. Niv-Mizzet is a control deck that looks to ramp out your commander and use him to grind value. The deck excels at stopping opponents with a never-ending stream of answers. The deck then finishes the game with a curiosity effect on Niv to deal damage and draw cards equal to your deck size. We will be including lists in the description for the decks shown tonight. We will have $100 budget decks, as well as $500 upgraded decks, and then finally the full current budgetless versions. Hopefully these will give you ideas as to the paths you can take when upgrading your deck. Without further ado, let's begin this needless, neglectful, noble, noxious neighborhood of nastiness. Zach wins the Who Has the Craziest Hair contest and gets to start us off. Zach draws a card for turn and plays a Tainted Isle. He casts a Ginger Brute. Zach moves to combat and attacks Garrett with the Brute. Garrett takes it and Zach passes the turn. Ryan draws a card for turn and plays an island. He shifts the turn to Garrett. Garrett draws a card for turn and plays a forest. He casts a Llanowar Elves. Garrett passes to Adam. Adam draws a card for turn and plays an island. Adam passes. Zach draws and plays a swamp. He moves to combat and attacks Adam with Ginger Brute. Adam can't block, and Zach activates Yuriko's ninjutsu ability, putting it onto the battlefield from the command zone, and returns Ginger Brute to his hand. Adam takes a hit, and Yuriko triggers. Zach reveals a Thought Scour, his opponents lose 1 life, and then he puts the card into his hand. Zach passes to Ryan, discarding to hand size. Ryan draws and plays a Castle Vantress, untapped. Ryan ends his turn. Garrett draws and plays a Swamp. He casts an Arcane Signet. He passes. Adam draws and plays a Mountain. He ends the turn. Zach draws and moves directly to combat. He attacks Garrett with Yuriko. Garrett takes the hit, and a Yuriko trigger goes onto the stack. In response, Zach casts Brainstorm. He draws 3 and then puts 2 back on top. Yuriko's trigger reveals a murderous cut. Zach's opponents lose 5 life, and then he puts the card into his hand. In his second main phase, Zach casts a Changeling Outcast. He passes the turn, discarding to hand size. Ryan draws and plays an island. Ryan passes to Garrett. Garrett draws and casts a Simic Signet. He casts a Preordain. He scries 2 and draws a card. Garrett passes. At the end of Garrett's turn, Adam flashes in an Omen of the Sea. Adam scries 2 and draws a card. Adam draws and plays an island. He casts Mystic Remora. The table groans, and he ends the turn. Zach draws and casts a Fairy Seer. It resolves and Zach scries 2. Zach moves to combat and attacks Garrett with Yuriko and Changeling Outcast. Garrett takes it and Yuriko triggers twice. Zach reveals an Underground River and an island, putting both into his hand. In his second main phase, Zach plays an Underground River. He recasts Gingerbrute. Zach passes to Ryan. Ryan draws and casts a Mystic Remora of his own. Mystic Remora triggers, but in response, Garrett casts Negate, targeting Mystic Remora. Adam's Mystic Remora triggers again, and he draws. Ryan responds by casting Disrupting Shoal for its alternate cost, exiling Disperse and targeting Negate. Adam's Remora triggers, and he draws. Adam responds by casting Dispel, countering Disrupting Shoal. Adam then draws a card from his original Remora trigger. Negate then counters Mystic Remora, and then Ryan passes the turn. Garrett draws, and then delves some of his graveyard to cast his commander, Tasigur the Golden Fang. He ships the turn to Adam. During his upkeep, Adam pays for Mystic Remora. He draws and plays a Shivan Reef. He casts Captain Lannery Storm. In response, Ryan casts Essence Scatter. Mystic Remora triggers, and Adam draws. Scatter counters Lannery, and Adam passes. At the end of Adam's turn, Zach taps Underground River to cast Thought Scour, targeting himself. Remora triggers, and Adam draws. Zach mills 2 cards and draws 1. Adam then discards the hand size, and the turn goes to Zach. Zach draws and plays an island. He moves to combat and attacks Adam with Yuriko and Gingerbrute, and Garrett with Fairy Seer and Changeling Outcast. They both take the hit, and Yuriko triggers twice. In response, Zach casts Trickery Charm. Remora triggers, and Adam draws. Zach looks at the top 4 cards and rearranges them accordingly. Yuriko's first trigger reveals a Wing Crafter. Zach opponents lose 1 life, and then he puts it into his hand. In response to the second trigger, Zach casts Anticipate. Remora triggers, and Adam draws. Zach looks at the top 3 cards, puts 1 into his hand, bottoming the rest. The second trigger resolves, and Zach reveals a Winds of Rebuke. His opponents lose 2 life, and then he puts it into his hand. Zach passes, discarding to hand size. Ryan draws and casts a Wave Break Hippocamp. He ends his turn. Garrett draws, takes no actions, and passes to Adam. During his upkeep, Adam pays for Mystic Remora. He plays a Mountain. He follows it up by casting a Talisman of Creativity. Adam passes, discarding to hand size. Zach draws and plays a Sunken Hollow, untapped. He moves to combat and swings Yuriko, Gingerbrute, Fairy Seer, and Changeling Outcast all at Adam. Adam doesn't block, and in response, Zach activates Fallen Shinobi's Ninjutsu ability from his hand, returning Fairy Seer to his hand, and then putting Fallen Shinobi onto the battlefield, tapped and attacking Adam. Before damage, Garrett casts Into the Royal, bouncing Yuriko back to Zach's hand. Adam then takes the damage. Fallen Shinobi triggers, and Adam exiles an island and a Muddle the Mixture from the top of his deck. Zach passes, discarding Yuriko to hand size and returning her to the command zone. Ryan draws and casts Legacy's Allure. Mystic Remora triggers, and Adam draws. Ryan ends his turn. At the end of Ryan's turn, Garrett casts Beats Within, targeting Mystic Remora. Remora triggers, and Adam draws. Remora is destroyed, and then Adam creates a 3/3 beast. Then the turn moves to Garrett. Garrett draws, continues to hold up mana, and then ships the turn to Adam. Adam draws and plays a command tower. He casts a Treasonous Ogre. Adam passes, discarding to hand size. Zach draws and casts a Wing Crafter. It enters, and he pairs it with his Fallen Shinobi. He moves to combat and attacks Ryan with Fallen Shinobi and Changeling Outcast. Ryan declares no blocks and takes the hit. Fallen Shinobi triggers, and Ryan exiles Dig Through Time and Disallow from the top of his library. In his second main phase, Zach casts Dig Through Time for free. In response, Garrett casts Foil, targeting Dig Through Time. Zach responds by casting Disallow from Ryan's exile, targeting Foil. Garrett responds by casting Misdirection, exiling a blue card, and changing the target of Disallow to Dig Through Time. Disallow counters Dig Through Time, and then Foil fizzles. With Zach's plans thwarted, he recasts Fairy Seer. It resolves, and he scries 2. Zach plays an island, and then ends the turn. During his upkeep, Ryan puts a treasure counter on Legacy's Allure. He draws and plays an island. Ryan casts a Commander Sphere. He casts a Sky Diamond. He passes to Garrett. Garrett draws and plays a Gaia Reach Sanitarium. Garrett passes. At the end of Garrett's turn, Adam sacrifices Omen of the Sea and scries 2. Adam draws and then delves away some of his graveyard to cast Treasure Cruise. In response, Zach casts Telling Time. He looks at the top 3 cards of his library, puts 1 into his hand, 1 onto the top, and then 1 onto the bottom. Zach then casts Dimir Charm, countering Treasure Cruise. Adam pays 3 life and then adds 1 red mana through Treasonous Ogre. He taps Shivan Reef and Talisman of Curiosity to help cast his commander, Niv-Mizzet Perun. He follows it up by casting Curiosity, targeting Niv. The table goes into high alert, and in response, Garrett activates Tasigur. He mills 2 cards, and Ryan chooses to return Into the Royal to Garrett's hand. Garrett then casts Into the Royal, targeting Niv-Mizzet. Niv-Mizzet triggers, Adam draws, and deals 1 damage to Zach. Adam activates Treasonous Ogre and pays 3 life to add a red. He casts Red Elemental Blast, targeting Into the Royal. Niv triggers, Adam draws, and then deals 1 damage to Zach. Then Red Elemental Blast counters Into the Royal. Curiosity resolves, and the table accepts their fate. Adam plays an island. He casts Snapback, exiling a blue card and targeting Fallen Shinobi. Niv triggers, and then Adam demonstrates a loop of drawing a card, Niv dealing 1 damage to one of his opponents, and then he draws again. He draws until he finds the card he's looking for. Snapback resolves and bounces Fallen Shinobi. Adam activates Treasonous Ogre 3 times, paying 9 life, and then adding 3 red mana to his mana pool. He casts a Glinthorn Buccaneer. Adam moves to his instep, discards a ridiculous amount of cards to hand size, Glinthorn Buccaneer triggers, killing all of his opponents, and Adam wins the game. Ladies and gentlemen, what a game. The team set out to build CEDH power level decks on a budget, and hopefully tonight's game showed you that it can be done. Even while building on an extreme budget, you can still play CEDH without breaking the bank. Congratulations to Adam on his win. He played his deck perfectly, ramping and drawing lots of cards in the early game, and then chose the perfect time to strike. This game should illustrate what makes Niv-Mizzet Perun such a force to be reckoned with. Niv's abilities are great for drawing cards and killing creatures, but what puts him over the top is that Niv is uncounterable. The most valuable card of tonight's game goes to Glinthorn Buccaneer. This card acts as both a win con and a way to assemble combos in Niv-Mizzet. This card is incredibly versatile, and this win con is starting to show up in more and more decks. While not all CEDH decks can be built on this budget, we all had a great time playing these decks, and we would highly recommend that you try it out for yourselves. Some of these decks can even hold their own against non-budget tables. Stay tuned, and you might just see that in the future. In the meantime, check out our other budget videos, linked in the description below. One of the main messages that we wanted to send with this video is that CEDH isn't just a small list of cards or how much money you can spend on a deck. CEDH is more of a spirit of play. We challenge anyone watching this video to build a $100 budget CEDH deck of your own. Check out our deck lists and our links to more budget resources in the description below for some inspiration. Well, that about wraps it up for this episode. You can help us out by liking, sharing, subscribing, and also supporting us on Patreon. Thank you so much for watching, and we will see you next time. Okay, I'd like to give a Patreon shout out to D. Roach, Brad Tobin, Sanguinolency, I hope that's right, Snarps the Cleft, Matt Wingrove, Delphdriz, Josh Kovach, Dante, Baby Jesus, no, that's not right, Baby Jeebus, Trey Payne, Rikeko, Baskin, Zods, Noah Saldana, Wayan, Spilrahu, CZ, Taylor Taylor Colron, and Nick. Really appreciate it. You guys are the best.